Tuesday, 12th of the 6th, 2018. The week seems not to have ended. Still, my life remains in the same place, minus exams and the additions of school and work. The ball was good. I dressed in my expensive suit, wore a Night Vale tie and Night Vale socks. The tie arrived 2 days before the ball, and I've had my socks for a while, and only decided to first wear them during the ball. Under my suit was my red Pizza John shirt, and under that was a white-collared Target shirt. The red shirt worked well with the purple tie and black suit. Each layer of garment was a lighter shade. The suit a black, the tie a dark purple. The red shirt had under it a white one. My goal was to keep some level of personalization while I dressed formal, an eccentric yet subtle look to the formality, and I think it worked. Each world we are in handles things in a different way. The rules differ. We all have desires, many which are similar and fundamental to our being, but our approach is different. Be it the real world or the ones we make ourselves, the ones that don't exist in a physical place the way we think of it. I've learned much this week. This week I've fully indulged in a world that handles things differently to the worlds I have liked to live in. What I only knew before, have now an understanding of. It's not a culture one thinks of when they hear culture, but it is the most fast-paced form of it around. And it has diversity, along with its own forms of management. My next English assignment is a podcast. This is useful because not only am I the only one in the class who listens to podcasts, but also have a little experience in making them. The project is to talk about a chapter in a book you read in the past and read it through a certain theme. The teacher showed us an example through the podcast Harry Potter and the Sacred Text, a podcast I do not listen to, but I've heard of multiple times. No one really enjoyed listening to that podcast except me, but they came from a different world to my classmates, a different community, and although I don't listen to that podcast, I found it more enjoyable because the way they speak is closer to the way the other worlds I exist within speak. I chose Eragon by Christopher Paolini. It was a series I remember enjoying greatly at the time of reading, around the age of 12. The books are very large and present a building romance of a boy as he is given the responsibility to save his world from a tyrannical power. I remember myself being fascinated with the relationship between the main character, Eragon, and his dragon. I remember being fascinated as the relationship was one that does not exist in the real world. It was not a friendship, they weren't really family, and it certainly was not romantic. Although, all three of those relationships existed within the series alongside the new one. I could not really akin the relationship to anything in the real world. Maybe some form of attachment to a precious object, but with the addition of sentience and empathy. They were peers, unlike tools or pets who had their own place in the world attributed to others. I found nothing to akin to, but the relationship was something I experienced with the characters. A new interaction that could not be had anywhere else was shown to me. Wednesday, 13th of the 6th, 2018. I've been getting back into reading this old book of mine. I remember the times when I was reading the novel back in primary school. The series consumed months, and when it was over, I didn't know what to do next. Certainly, Eragon was a significant book for me at that specific time. Of course, it fades in its perceived importance to me, as will everything I will ever experience in my life. Exam results are coming in, and I am passing it all so far. But not all have arrived. I've installed Twitter, but have not opened the application yet. My phone has this unusual issue where apps are unable to connect to the internet when newly installed, unless I turn the phone off and on again. This leaves Twitter to be of no purpose, even if I was to open it until I shut my phone off. And I plan that to be the time I commence its usage again. This podcast I need to make for English must be done before the end of term in 2 weeks' time. I'm already familiar with the podcasting process, which will be helpful to me, but I still must deal with the format requested of me. I am to summarize an example from a text. I chose Aragon, and summarize it again through a certain theme. I look forward to the end product, as I always do. But that, in my experience, has never got the things I wanted done. That always occurs through a flare of productivity. Something that has become less common for me, it feels, although maybe I just desire it more and hence am more attuned to its scarcity. One thing I realized upon returning to Aragon was the ease at which the text spoke. The words were something easier to process. Macomb County was readable, but I remember struggling through it the first round a year or so ago. The easier time of reading was due simply to reading it before. Year 9 I read no books, I think with the exception of one for English. Year 10, when I found my entire world shift in view. Among the many changes of mine was my interest in trying to renew my book reading. As I was quite the bookworm in primary school and the first year of high school. You can see my attempts at reading on the early videos of my channel. Transitioning to classic literature in a dry spell of reading when the past books you read were made for children, often in mind, was not easy. I'd abandoned the Picture of Dorian Gray as it was too difficult to read for me at the time. I was only halfway through. I read Frankenstein, a book that said the word countenance too much for me, but was nevertheless thoroughly enjoyed. Of Mice and Men was short, which only meant that each word bore more importance to the story that was told. The Book Thief gave life to a place and time I hear not the perspective of, told through the perspective one never considers. All these books were harder to read, but were just as valuable. Aragon is easier, but its words have the same significance. And I am now extracting from it things I would not have the first time around. I left 1930s America for a world of fantasy, of dragons and magic and bonds that do not exist. This is fitting for the approaching school holidays. I know that the next semester will have to move back into a world that once existed with problems that are decided not by the actions of one and effort of many, but through the actions of many and efforts of many, along with decisions that hold many outcomes of various and often subjective morality. Next semester, I will elect to have my world be placed into the eyes of those in Nazi Germany, a time of terrible outcomes for all, as is of wars. I do not yet know if I am to read The Book Thief once more during this time. It holds much value in its setting and is simply a good book. But there are others out there too. We will see the outcomes then, but there are still a couple weeks of school and another couple weeks of holidays before the time comes. For now, I must contend with Paolini's world of relationships never seen and the conflicts well known. Friday, 22nd of the 6th, 2018. This week was NAIDOC Week, a week of the acknowledgement of Aboriginals, which is well known by me and many fellow Australians through the offering of free food on one of those days. I do say that there is no better way to fight systemic racism than offering free food, and I don't joke about that either. During the NAIDOC assembly today, I turned my phone off so it would not vibrate. This means that Twitter is back on the phone again. I told myself that I'd return to that world as soon as I turned my phone off and on again. And now that time has come. Since exam week, I've been existing only in one part of the social media world, consumed in its society, and whose community reveals more and more complexities that I wish to wrap my head around. Do I wish to return to the Twitter world on top of that? On Google Plus, bait posts, that is, posts designed to start huge arguments, are frowned upon and in many places simply not allowed. Twitter is a place of bait posts and them alone. I don't know if I want to return to that. I don't know if I want to be caught up in the events so present and new as they are presented on there. What's the point of following the people you enjoy anyway? To reply to their comments after hours of scrolling through a feed so that they might see it and might like it? No. Only once has such a thing happened. It made little difference but to evade me further from sleep. Google Plus, in all its irony and distasteful, hateful rejects, is at least a community where I can earn authority not with the hope of appealing to a person of many followers, but through my own efforts, a work of merit as opposed to popularity. I often joke that the site is the worst of free speech and complete equality, but in some ways it's true. It still remains a dying world that I have come to love. Still, I know I must back away at some point. Cease such a strong commitment to it. Not only does it distract me from other things I find interest in, but the site itself has the red flags of neglect, and I feel its days are numbered. I can't help but indulge in the poetics of this site in a way. Many might find my romanticization of such a place stupid, but the idea of essentially outcasts of an unusual kind bearing the hardships of a neglected place and riding out their final days in the same humor the site was always meant to live on. It's a story I can't help but witness firsthand when it comes to me in such a harmless way as Plus has. Holidays are in a week. I'll be going to Geraldton, going again for the 8 hours to the wind and the sand and the only true familiar cityscape I know. I have a renewed excitement for returning to my hometown again, where I spend the first half of my living memory. I can write about it right here, an effective medium of writing, one where more can be said than in my videos, and without the need of visual elements, a hassle I am not adamantly skilled at, contrary to my friend Juva, who is equipped with the passion, skill, and equipment to create the most stunning, if infrequent, videos. I remember the idea to do this came over time. At first I wanted to do a Two Guys Talking podcast, but it was hard as the only viable partners were from other sides of the world, where the time zones would be an issue. I did not have enough quiet here to record for so long anyway. Hours of no noise would be an impossible venture, especially at regular intervals. No, the 20 minutes of talking this podcast requires, whenever I feel inclined, is perfect for me. Google Plus has taught me of the pointlessness of creating for success, and so I do not create this to attempt popularity. Sure, I take advice into account. It seems with every venture I prefer the musical sounds outweigh my voice, which to others makes me unhearable. I'm simply here to satisfy the urge to get it all out of my head, to turn nothing into something. What I am doing will not get an audience. It will not gain attention or get popular to any degree those might consider popular. I know that. I do not care. I appreciate every listen. I still joy in seeing green on my social blade and seeing the number of listens on this podcast, but no longer do I take that into priority. I'm here for myself. This is something I am doing for myself. The goal is for me to achieve self-satisfaction, deal my own dopamine, and leave me happy. Like my past is preserved, and hence a little piece of all the things that I ever was a part of is also reserved. From that as seemingly trivial as plus to those as vital and world-changing as this region. What it was like for an extremely tiny piece of that world that builds the biggest cities and funds one of the wealthiest known countries. Wednesday, 27th of the 6th, 2018. It is only a couple of days before I am going to Geraldton. I have handed in my podcast assignment. The term is at a close. The days are seeming short, and not because of the winter, as I do not base my time on the sun, but the hours tracked by the companies that allow me to reach into the different worlds from afar. I hope to get stuff done in Geraldton. It has been a while since I have made any sort of video, and it would be nice to continue such a thing, as in spite of my subpar video skills, the medium still gains more traction amongst many of the people I know than simply audio alone, which I don't really get, as I would rather have my eyes closed when listening to a voice as such. Overall, my feelings are positive. Not a cheerful kind of positivity, nor the content kind. No, I am simply positive in that mysterious and temporary manner. One that I do not want to question. I intend to progress for the next few weeks. I do not plan anything now, just to simply focus on the things I have already committed to my mind. I am to make videos and write these words. I am to continue my presence on Plus, contributing to this new set of people I have grown to appreciate the politics of. Sometimes I feel like I try everything, but I am never a master in any task or art. I have made videos, songs, memes, and gave a brief go at drawing, but none of those did I make something exceptional. I know that to make something great takes great lengths of time and practice. But before such a thing can happen, I am already moving on. My longest commitment is my videos, as I have been making them at some level of consistency for a year, and that is why I fear losing them. But this podcast sparks a new kind of interest with me, and it's hard to stay with the same kind of work, even with the pain of moving on being so great. I never do like removing the old from me. Although I am very different from a decade ago, I show consistency in some ways. I've had this freewheel triangular skateboard, something of a gimmick in its day. I got it for my birthday while I still lived in Geraldton, meaning it was at least 8 years ago now. Still I ride a soul skate, and I have been used to those wheels longer than my body has had most of its cells. What is oddly painful to acknowledge, however, is the fact that it is not the same soul skate I got all those years ago. After nearly 5 years, the board's wheels started acting up. I bought new ones, but they were hard to find and expensive to buy. In the end, it became better to buy an entirely new soul skate. I'll forever have to tackle that, knowing when I say I've had this thing for so long as a lie. But I'll never let go of this odd and strong connection between me and this board. This is a different soul skate, but ultimately it doesn't matter. I treat it all the same. and it has gone through the same, riding both in Drolton and Newman through the red dirt and yellow sand, through heat and winds alike. Even if this new Soulscape does not boast the original memory of riding through a strong gust in Drolton wind when I was young and scraping myself all over as I stuck it on the street road. Or maybe it does still bear that memory. What says that just because the thick plastic and metal changes, that this Soulscape of Theseus is not the same? Having the same owner and purpose and places road, I never see the old board again. It is likely destroyed. So where else to put its sense of existence but on its hair? It does not matter the matter of the board when it comes from such abstracts as consistent self.